Hi, welcome to another session of the Female Disruptors Virtual Summit. The second annual Unstoppable is our theme. My name is Lisa Beyer. I'm the founder of Female Disruptors, and I'm going to do a short intro to Michelle Abbs, who is going to be our guest on the Web3 track, the Tech Queen track, actually. And Michelle, I actually met her when she was speaking at NFT Miami. And she didn't meet me. I saw her on stage and I recorded her whole presentation about her history of how she got into Web3. And I'm going to let her go into the details, but I'm pretty sure I stalked her on LinkedIn until she finally answered my message to be part of the Female Disruptors roster. And also I'm now a proud owner of her NFT collection, Tuttle Tribes, and I'm going to let her tell you about that. But what I love, I'll tell you about Tuttle Tribes, is the utility in the community that come with owning that NFT, besides the fact that I love visually the art of it. But the one thing about NFTs, we've come a long way, up and down roller coaster over the past year. When we had our first virtual summit a year ago today, NFTs have changed and evolved, and I'll let Michelle tell you more about that. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, and welcome.
Oh, Lisa, thank you so much. And yeah, I am so glad that we got to connect in real life after, being at that conference together. And yeah, it's really wonderful to have this opportunity to be part of what you've built and, the community of female leaders that you have brought together to inspire everyone. So excited to share, around like what are the concepts of Web3, what is NFTs, metaverse, all of that. But just, before we start to kind of, piggyback off everything that you were saying, I wanted to introduce myself. So yeah, I'm actually an educator by training. I started my career as a teacher, and I think this bug of teaching and inspiring, groups of people has been sort of woven throughout everything that I've done. And when I entered into Web3, kind of by happenstance, I envisioned and executed a conference during Art Basel in 2021, and then started getting a flood of female friends asking me questions about, should I buy an NFT? What's crypto? What are these things? So I decided to, launch a community to answer those questions together. And when we were exploring, what does it look like to really have an NFT or a utility token that represents our community, we said, well, who are we inspired by? Like, what do we stand for? Who, might represent this concept? We decided to, stay really focused on this ethos of Miami embracing its feminine leadership. And so we named the collection the Tuttle Tribe, which is named after Julia Tuttle. And Julia Tuttle is very special because she is the only female to have founded a major US city. So back in 1892, she purchased, this huge tract of land in South Florida to then, become Miami. And like, I think about that all the time, like what it was like in the 1890s for women. Like if we, think about our modern day context and how much we're still fighting against, and just what it meant for Julia Tuttle to have shattered that glass ceiling back then. And so, that kind of inspiration is like the guiding light of everything that we do. So if we're good, Lisa, I'll just kind of kick into the content then.
Go for it.
All right. So, I mentioned this ethos of mine of really being, like based in education and based in, bringing people together. And I think it's not just about, educating for educating's sake, but we have a very unique moment in time right now to, as we, begin with the origin and the basic like foundational infrastructure of what this technological advancement and revolution can be, we have an opportunity in this moment to build it equitably. It gets harder as we go forward. And so like, that is what we are about, is ensuring that Web3 is equitable, specifically that more women are, in leadership roles. And so let's just bring it back. And it's like, I think many of us today probably understand why that matters, but let's just think about this in a sort of more philosophical sense as well. So on the screen right now, you see images of Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. And when you look at those images, you know, each of you on this session right now, I'm curious for you to do a little sort of self-reflection of like, what do these icons and logos mean to you? And specifically, like, what do they mean in your day-to-day life? Like, when was the last time that you used these apps? Like, how do they impact your life and how important are they? And I know we're not all on microphones, we can't share back and forth in this moment, but I would venture to guess it may have been 5 minutes ago that you put down your phone and engaged with one of these apps. Like, these are ever present in our lives. Well, what do these apps all have in common? These are their founders. So I look at this picture and I mean, it kind of is a gut punch, right? Like, look at the technology that shapes our day-to-day lives and look at who it was founded by. And what does that mean? And I think that, you know, is a question for us to really bite into and explore. But I think we all know that it means that at times when decisions were made, when, you know, building these technologies, there are voices missing from the narrative and from those decisions. And if that isn't stark enough for you, this is a photo of the sort of inception moment of venture capital. So these are the gentlemen that founded Kleiner Perkins in 1972. Or Perkins Kleiner, I forget, however the words go together on that one. But again, like, look at this photo. It's even more homogeneous than the last photo. And so you have a group of white men who sat around in a room and decided what the system of venture capital would be. And what has happened 50 years later is that less than 3% of venture capital funding goes to female founders. So I think, you know, we can see images, we can see, oh my gosh, it's all men, but like, the data shows us what the ramifications of that, you know, like one system, one sort of expression of life, making decisions and creating systems that impact everybody. And it's very hard to turn this ship 50 years later, right? I think there's so many groups who are working to try to increase venture capital funding that goes to women, but it's been broken since the beginning. So it's quite challenging to go back now and try to right those wrongs. And I think that is the opportunity and the call to action and the imperative around ensuring that more women engage right now, because we cannot let this be the same story in Web3. We cannot let, and you know, our daughters and our sons of future generations suffer world that is inequitable again. And so it is, you know, upon all of us in this moment to make sure that we don't, you know, repeat that history, you know, and pattern from the past. And I feel inspired because I know that we're still early. And so there actually is this opportunity to build something that has equity baked into it. But that means all of us on this webinar, at people who maybe this type of webinar is not on their radar, it's time for each of us to take action, right? We've got to lean in and learn, and then take whatever path makes sense for you. So there's no, you know, we don't dictate in Web3 equity. We don't say we believe everybody needs to be a founder or everybody needs to be an investor. Everyone needs to be an artist and create their own NFT collection. I don't care how you engage in Web3, but engage. Make sure your voice is heard. Make sure you are represented in this key moment. Because otherwise I fear that we will pass on to future generations that same photo of a homogenous group of people making decisions for technology that's going to impact us in the future. So now you got it. You're like, all right, Michelle, I've got to learn. I'm ready. What is Web3? It's, time for us to dive in. We're going to reshape that picture and make sure that more women are included. So I think to understand this term and this umbrella term of Web3, it's really important to look back at, how we define Web 1 and Web 2. And I think about these concepts in two ways. So I think about first, the way that content is experienced in them, and then second, the way that ownership is expressed. So let's talk through that. So Web 1. Remember sitting at the computer in the late 1990s when you had the dial-up modem and your very first time kind of engaging with a computer, and think about what you were doing then. If you were anything like me, it was a place where maybe you went to read the news, maybe you checked the weather, but it was static. The content was read-only, right? This was basically taking mediums that we had already had in form of newspaper or magazine or encyclopedia and putting them on the internet for us to read, right? That was the way that content was expressed in Web 1. And this is really like the origin of our data footprint, right? We didn't even realize that there was going to be this potential to track what things we were reading, what we were doing, but that's the origin of it in Web 1 in the late 1990s, very early 2000s. And then we move into Web 2. And this is the dawn of, social media, smartphones, which put the internet in our pocket and, easily accessible on the go. Well, we move to a world where content is not just read-only and static, but we can actually write and share and create things. So you see, Facebook being the place where you make major life announcements. You go to YouTube to express, your content creation, and musicians are sharing music there. So the way that content, is created and shared moves into a much more social, interconnected network. And Web 2 is really the moment when our data becomes centralized. So all of the things that we are doing on those platforms, all of the publishing that we're doing on those platforms is owned by those central companies. So think back to that first slide that had all the logos of those major, tech mogul companies. Well, they own all of our data. What we're excited about and, what Web3 represents is a world that kind of, addresses some of the challenges of Web 2. Specifically with content, we now have the ability to create content, publish it, engage, activate, and monetize it, because that content becomes owned by us. It's owned by a creator because it's in a decentralized system. So people are really excited about the future of the internet, really, and what Web3 represents, because it can use this decentralized system, so we don't have one central authority owning all of our data. And then it also empowers creators and any sort of normal person who has any data, think health data, think school records data. It empowers us to be decision makers around how that is shared. So Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, we've arrived at Web 3. I might have said some things that are still like, wait, what? Michelle, I'm not sure I totally understand. Okay, do we really need that? Because a lot of what you said, like, can't we just address that with what we see in Web 2? Like, do we really need to own things? We really want to do that. And so I think these are very important questions to ask. And I want to give an example of Dave Letterman asking kind of similar questions to Bill Gates back in 1995. So let's see what he has to say.
I think about this, and what about this internet thing? Do you know anything about that?
Sure.
What the hell is that exactly?
Well, it's become a place where people are publishing information. So everybody can have their own homepage. Companies are there, the latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Yeah, but it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I mean?
There's a difference.
There is a difference.
It's not a huge difference.
What is the difference?
But you can listen to the baseball game whenever you want.
All right.
Too.
Oh, I see. So it's stored in one of your memory deals.
Exactly.
And then you can
That's
come
the
back a
ramp
year
thing
later.
you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Do tape recorders ring a bell? Yeah, I just don't know. What can you, just knowing me the little you know me now, what am I missing here? What do I need?
Well, if you want to learn about the latest cigars or auto racing statistics.
Well, I've got that covered. I subscribe to 2 British magazines devoted entirely to motorsports, and I call the Quaker State Speed Line about 2 times a half hour. So now with the computer.
So what we see here, right, is Dave Letterman saying to Bill Gates, all the things you're telling me about this revolutionary technology, I can already do. And there are some examples when people talk about Web3, it's like, well, we can already do that, right? Why do we need to do it in this different way? And even when Bill Gates answers Dave Letterman, he was like, there's a difference. It's not that big, right? What in that moment, what distinguished reading something on the internet versus reading it in Dave Letterman's magazine, it wasn't that compelling. That's the moment we're in right now. There are some use cases that are not that, it's like, it feels like, what? Like, why would I put my money in a wallet online when I have a bank? Why would I do that? We cannot even see around the corner yet into all of the ways that this technology will be used. And so the same way that we could not have in this moment said to Dave Letterman, which is why Bill Gates doesn't say to Dave Letterman, well, you know what, there's going to be these websites and you're actually going to be able to plan your next trip using these websites. And you might even share your home and stay in someone else's home when you travel and the next time. Like, we couldn't even conceptualize that in 1995. That's where we are with Web3 right now. So those questions of, do we really need that though, are right. And it's fair, and keep asking them and keep pushing so that we make sure we're building that technology that truly is needed. And if the answer isn't fully baked yet, that doesn't mean that Web3 and blockchain technology aren't as revolutionary as we may know that they will be, because we are just that early. So what is Web3? Michelle, you have talked and talked and talked. What actually is it? Let's just like simplify this in the easiest terms. It's the future of the internet. And what fuels this future is blockchain technology. And blockchain technology is revolutionary because it's the first system and network that is decentralized, which means it can execute transactions that are recorded publicly on a digital ledger, and they do not require any centralized authority to approve them, to store them, to execute them. So the decentralization is truly the part of this that is revolutionary. And I want to, sometimes the words that one person says may not land in the same way. So I want you to hear this from the voices of a few of our community members around like what that, future of the internet, how they define Web3 and why it's so important. So first is this concept of ownership. And this is Jenna Pilgrim.
Web3 is shared ownership in community. So for the first time, people are able to quantify their contributions online, and they're able to be credited for them, which means we can all collectively own stuff, and that's pretty cool.
So this idea of ownership, collective ownership, rewards for engagement, and how you are interacting, these are all things that we're seeing happen in Web3. And so, this idea of when maybe you publish articles for a digital newspaper and you get tokens back for all of those. When you share additional articles from that media source, you are rewarded for that. So there's this concept of ownership, and then there's concept of collective ownership. So when you are part of a community that owns something together, it's in everyone's best interest to help that stock go up, or, the same way when we think about stocks and the price of a company going up. Well, now everyone who owns a token within that community owns that community, and they own the bottom line of that community, so that collectively can experience rewards together. So that's one of the key pieces. The other is around sovereignty. And so I want you to hear from Marina around why she thinks Web3 represents a really important moment for self-sovereignty.
Hi, my name is Marina, and to me, Web3 means decentralization and data sovereignty. So in Web2, data has been owned by just a few corporations, and there's these, it sounds sort of apocalyptic, but our data is owned by other people and other conglomerates, and they know more about us than we do, and that is terrifying to me. Especially now in this age of like post Roe v. Wade, women are being targeted for, with their period data. Like we don't have a real understanding of how far this data collection goes. And to me, Web3 means we will own our data and do with it what we want and not what other.
So yes, when we are interacting in Web2 as it stands, we are being tracked. And we, of course, now have these, cookies, and do we accept the cookies? And but sometimes it feels like there's no other choice. And so with Web3, we move into a world where you can make a choice. You may say to a health company, I am okay sharing the data around my menstrual cycle. They may incentivize that by paying you for that data, but then it's also public on this digital ledger to share what they're doing with that data. So Web3 represents, a way to address some of the root problems in Web2, and also a new future around ownership. So if we, are sold on sort of what Web3 is, why we need to be involved. Okay, so now let's get into the how, the very tactical. So this is my favorite question that was actually asked to me in a session a couple of weeks ago. Someone said, oh, this may be a dumb question, which, by the way, I believe there are no dumb questions in Web3. She said, but how will I know I'm in Web3? And I thought that was such a wonderful curiosity. So, in Web 1, the dawn of computers, we knew we were going on the internet. You went to the computer to go to the internet. You were clear what you were doing. In Web 2, you were going on a social media app. You were engaging in an iPhone or an Android, right? We were clear on how we were engaging. In Web 3, what does that mean? The key marker of Web 3 and how you know you're in it is through the wallet connection and your digital wallet. So a digital wallet is, think of it like your passport. It's kind of like a sign-on, right? The same way that you have a username and, a password to many different sites. Well, in Web3, you will have a digital wallet, and that's what will be your sign-on to these various blockchain technology aspects that are integrated in Web3. So step one, if you want to enter into the world of Web3, and because we're leaning in and taking action, we're all going to do this, right? You need to create a digital wallet. We offer on our website tutorials that go through the step-by-step process of how to open a wallet. Those are examples using MetaMask and Coinbase wallet. Those are two of the most commonly used wallets. There's actually not a ton of debate. People seem to just enjoy the user experience of MetaMask. It's become the easier one to use. And then Coinbase, folks, I think, are familiar with that, you know, and they trust Coinbase in the sense that it's publicly traded company, right? So like that's a layer of security or trust that's built in there. But there are various wallets. I have lost track of how many, but there are multiple hundreds of different wallets that you could create and open. And so I encourage you after today, after your full day of learning with female disruptors, put on your agenda, you know, when you're having your dinner or tomorrow morning, open a digital wallet. It is your entry point into the universe of Web3. And when you do that, you want to be in a safe place. So I would do this at home. I wouldn't go to Starbucks and be on public Wi-Fi, because you are setting up a cryptographic password and safe, you know, word to enter into your wallet. Because the concept that we heard Marina speak about on the last slide of self-sovereignty, we heard the positives of that. Self-sovereignty also means you can't call MetaMask support and say, hey guys, I can't get into my wallet because I forgot, you know, my password. They're going to say, great, then use that 12-word seed phrase that was given to you in the beginning. If you say, I lost that, there's nothing they can do. Why? Because it's decentralized. They're not a central authority that owns your data. So make sure when you set up your wallet, imminently after this, that you have a plan for where you will write those keywords. And again, our tutorials walk you through exactly how to do that. So this shows a model then of what it looks like within the wallet. So on the left side, you see that is the interface on MetaMask. So you see at the top an account, you see it's super fuzzy, apologies about that, but underneath it, there's a string of characters. It's like OXFC and then a bunch of ... because there's so many characters, it can't even show all of them. That's a wallet address. And that's something you can share publicly, because it's like sharing your email address, right? It's how people would get in touch with you. If they wanted to send you a digital item that's a gift, they would need your wallet address. And then underneath that, you see the 4 main things that you can do through MetaMask, which is receive, buy, you can purchase cryptocurrency through there. You can send items, you can send both crypto or NFTs, and you can swap. This is a new feature that you can do on there. And then beneath that, you see the digital assets that this wallet holds. Right above, you know, where it says ETH, DAI, Link, UMA, MKR, at the top there, that says tokens. So those are the tokens that person owns. And then on the right side, which is in gray, and you can't quite see it, but it says collectibles. So your digital wallet is your passport. It's your entry point. It's how you know you're in Web3. You're connecting a digital wallet to a site, or you're using your digital wallet in some way. And it's where all of these digital assets are stored. So what types of digital assets are we going to be using and storing? Let's break these down. So you may have heard of NFTs. So NFTs stands for non-fungible tokens. The key sort of that is within each of these are tokens. Okay, so non-fungible tokens simply means that it's a unique asset that is not fungible. Fungible means breakable, or, you know, you can divide it up. A non-fungible token cannot be divided up. It's a one of one. It's a unique asset that no one else can own. Think of your house is a one of one. Your car is a one of one. You own that, right? It's a unique asset. So NFTs represent unique digital assets. And we have seen these commonly be art, right? We've seen them in sort of collectible format. NBA Top Shots released NFTs that are these really cool player moments. So almost think of them like trading cards in that use case. But these non-fungible tokens live in a wallet. That is where you would store the ownership of that asset. You also can store cryptocurrency there. You know, examples like Bitcoin, you've probably heard of, Ether, Ethereum, and there's over 8,000 other cryptocurrency tokens. You can store those in your own digital wallet. You can also store them on exchanges. the news as presented to us, and history has shown us in this past year, the challenge around leaving your money in a centralized exchange. So people can get confused because they think, oh, well, I heard FTX, for example, that has to do with crypto and Web3. And so they think this is a decentralized network. Well, actually, FTX was a centralized exchange. It was not public. No one knew what they were doing. That's how we got into that challenging situation where people lost hundreds of millions of dollars. So if you're going to put your dollars into an exchange, just, kind of know that when it's a centralized exchange right now, because there aren't any government, sort of monitoring aspects in place, you don't actually know what's happening behind the scenes. So I have my digital cryptocurrency in my digital wallet and backed up on a cold storage wallet to make sure that it is safe. And by the way, just mentioned a term that I'm not going to go into today, but I would encourage you to check out on our website. We have a lot of examples that go into. Ledger is one of those backup assets for a cold storage wallet. So the last thing here, we talked about non-fungible tokens. You can also have tokens that represent that are divisible, that are fungible, and they also can represent ownership of a collection or shares in a company, right? These can be, I own a token that allows me to invest in a community together. And so these tokens, separate from a non-fungible token that's unique, can also live in the digital wallet. So now we're clear on what that digital wallet means, what can go in there. I wanted to just give an example of our NFT collection, which is called the Tuttle Tribe. And so this is a screenshot directly from our website. So you see on here, it describes what it is. It's a collection of 3,050 NFTs. It's a tribute to shout out to Julia Tuttle, right? We shared her story and why she's so amazing. And then on the second paragraph, you see the explanation of the NFT. It serves as a membership pass. So this is a token that has utility, and that's what you heard Lisa talk about, right? It's a utility token. You're not going to own this NFT and then, use it to invest in other female founders. That's not what it does, right? What it actually does is represents utility and access to an educational community. So NFTs should call out what the ownership of them means. And sometimes it just means owning a beautiful piece of art, and that's fine. Sometimes it does represent other aspects. So you see that called out here. And the other reason I wanted to show you this is because you don't always have to purchase in crypto when you are buying digital items. There are a lot of extensions and different options now that allow you to pay with credit card. So you could buy an NFT, pay with your credit card, then that service, we use NFT Pay, for example. NFT Pay goes on the back end and they exchange the amount that you paid for on your credit card into crypto, and then they send that to your wallet. So it's actually quite easy. So if you're like, I'm inspired, I'm into Web3, I set up my digital wallet, the next thing would be to populate that digital wallet with digital assets. And this is a great option if you want to join the community. So what's next? Because hopefully we just wet your palate around, these topics, defined them very high level. And what I hope you are sitting there doing right now is thinking of all of your questions, right? When I first heard about the concept of NFTs, that was my entry point into Web3. It was July of 2021. And I remember I take long runs and I have to run to music that's like really fast paced. So I keep up my pace. I was running and listening to podcasts. I was running and listening to, YouTube speakers talk about defining all of these items because my mind was running with all the different ideas, right? I wanted to be the Bill Gates in that clip and not the Dave Letterman. I wanted to understand all of the ways that it could be used. So if that's what you're doing right now, there are a couple ways that you can engage with us specifically. And of course, there's tons of other communities and ways to research about Web3, but we host in-person events, and those are listed on our website. We have one in Miami coming up on February 6th. We also do training. So if you say, all right, Michelle, what really piqued my interest was you mentioned quickly the health aspect. I want to learn about, your health data in Web3. Great. We can do a training on that. But the biggest aspect here is really connecting, right? So there is a strong, healthy community of other women who are saying, this is our moment. We're going to seize this opportunity with Web3 and we're going to lean in. And so I really encourage you to connect with a community, whether it's ours or various others, to just feel held and like supported in that group, because you're going to have a lot of questions along the way. So I hope that you will join us. This is all of the information and, the places to find us. And Lisa, I'll kick it to you now if there's any, questions or summary or where we want to go from here. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. Hi. Awesome. That was so awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Let me just change my view, or you want to take it off screen share?
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to chat a little bit about, I like I said, like I'm an owner of Tuttle Tribe. I also am an owner of Boss Beauties, my BFF, Eyes of Fashion, which I love, all different experiences. I try to try to go with women-led projects, especially in Web3 to support women. A lot has changed in the past year. And when we had Women in the Metaverse panel, which was a year ago today, everything was hot. Crypto was hot. And now everything's cool. And it reminds me of Web2 when I went through the .com bomb and boom. And it was like, getting your MBA, like you learned so much through this process. So for those that are, here on the live or on the replay, like I just want to chat about how important it is to be early and why. And you can share your why and I'll share my why, but why, what's your why?
Why it's important to be early?
Yes.
I feel I'm going to be redundant to what I just said. I just think that we have to have more diverse voices early. And I think women sometimes we're a bit risk reticent, right? We don't like to dive into that moment. We love to have like clarity and plan and there's a lot of research behind the why, and it is challenging for me to do that, but it's like we can't lean on that sort of historical experience that we might have had with risk. Like we've got to be early.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's my why too, but also I think that to keep yourself relevant in work, in the future of work. So I can remember during Web 2, I was an early adopter of Web 1, Web 2 in PR, right? And it was, I felt like there is a lot of educating taking place to bring people into Web 1 and Web 2. And then there was a lot of, I'm going to say, mostly male senior executives, marketing executives that were like, they don't have time to deal with like this Facebook, Twitter, ads, digital marketing, like they just, had the traditional thing going. And then because they didn't embrace it, they couldn't understand it. Like it gets to a point where like, there's so much catch up to do, you kind of go in blackout mode. And, now let's just say if I had to figure out Facebook now, instead of keeping up with it from around day one, I would be, it's a serious problem, So I think, yes, we want to stay, we want to, the whole diversity and equitable thing is so important, but also, just to be able to function in your profession, even if you're not on the front lines of tech, like that is to me so critical.
That's such a great point because, because we are so early, we have not seen as many of these use cases in our day-to-day lives, but they're coming. And so, yeah, imagine working at like an accounting firm and 2 months from now, someone brings this up. Well, you've already done all your homework. You get to bring in the first idea of, well, here's how it could apply to us right now. You actually get to step into a leadership role in a different way, right? You're right. It allows you to level up professionally as well as personally, if that's, a way you want to create something on your own.
Yeah, I can remember back in the day when I integrated social media into PR, and I was by no means a social media expert. I just happened to, be experimenting. But when you're that early and you're the only one in the room at the table that has experimented, you become that expert in that room to those people. And so I think that's like just an important message to carry forward, is that alone is going to make you more valuable to your circles, to your network, to in your professional career, and make your life easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just to talk a little bit about your just about the NFTs in general, and everything was so hot, and not that it's not right now, but I think that people that aren't, maybe in the loop and have been in it for the past couple years, like we have, are kind of like, oh, see, it was a scam, FTX, that was a scam, crypto's a scam, NFTs are now worthless. So it's easy to just kind of like be jaded by the headlines and not say, okay, like maybe this is worth investigating.
Yeah. And I think actually it concerned me how much people were excited about, flipping and trading NFTs, because I don't think that's not what we're talking about in Web3. Nowhere in my presentation I say, oh, and this is an opportunity to get rich really quick. It's like, no,
Right.
That's not what this, new future of the internet represents. And so I think, yeah, we saw that fizzle. And so I actually think that's a net positive. But you do have to get beyond the media headlines and the media narrative around some of that, either fear-based or, just overall like negativity.
Yes. One of the things also that I love about Web3 equity is that you're very focused on your messaging about male allies. And what do you say? How do you help male allies like understand how important this is, and what message do you have that we can take forward to our, male allies?
Yeah, I think that we do not do this enough. And I also myself, I'm pointing the finger at myself, like I want to do even more, because they get left out of the conversation so often. And then they see something that's about women or females, they're like, oh, okay, but that's for all women. Well, if we're going to solve gender inequities, men who've traditionally been in position of privilege, they are actually the key factor in how we fight those injustices. So there are two major things that they need to do and build skill around. There was a report that came out recently from Harvard Business Review that polled a few hundred men and women in the workplace, and it asked them to identify what I coined the term. I don't remember how Harvard Business Review refers to it, but like gender nuances. So these are the moments where you kind of know you're being asked a question because you're a woman, or there's something behind that, right? The typical, wow, you're a mom and you do that. Like, how do you do it all, right? We know that's because of our gender. That's a gender nuance. So what the Harvard Business Review article found was that men think they are way better at noticing these moments than they are. They answered, 80th percentile and above that they notice these moments, whereas women ranked them on the low end, 30% of these moments they're able to, acknowledge. So step one is men need to be able to see these moments when they're happening. And I think we can help them see it by bringing to their attention, hey, did you notice when they asked me in that meeting with 7 people and all of the other ones were men, they asked me to take notes? Why do you think they might have asked me? Like, is there some thoughts around women are more organized, and so they asked me to do that, right? Like helping them see that. So that's step one. And step two is then them understanding, what do they do when they do see it? Because if in that example of, me being the note taker, if I speak up and I say, well, I don't want to take notes, then there's a lot of risk associated with me as the woman who's already not in the position of power saying that. Whereas if a male ally steps in and says, hey, sir, who just asked Michelle to take notes, do you realize, like, if she's taking notes, she might not be able to contribute as much to the strategy, and we really need her to help us think about the strategy. Boom. That's like, gonna change the course in a different way than if I had. So first, being able to acknowledge and like understand where these moments happen. And then second is to be able to take action when they do happen.
I love that. Well, we're about ready to wrap up. Any last words of wisdom on being unstoppable is our theme, being a female disruptor. And another theme that I'm just kind of throwing out there that I got from another speaker is being comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, this whole, Web3 and tech and a lot of what we're going through in general as females, it's uncomfortable. Like we're trying to make change, and it's a lot easier just to be quiet.
It's super uncomfortable. And actually, I see in the audience, Luli and Megan, who are both part of the tribe and truly like are my tribe, right? It's been really uncomfortable. It's been really hard, like personally, not, I'm learning things. Of course, we're putting ourselves out there. We're saying women matter in this way. And people push back on these things, and it's emotional and it's hard, and you're tied up in this, and then you're also trying to learn everything and you're overwhelmed. So like having your support system and your network and your people you can lean on is so incredibly important, because those moments come. And that, even mean like, okay, there's a moment of like, today I'm taking the day, I'm taking my mental break, and having the group then that cheerleads you and welcomes you back when you're ready to dive back in.
I love that. Well, part of my mission here with Female Disruptors is to give females their fair share of the spotlight, meaning you, Michelle, and also help level the playing fields. So I really appreciate you being part of this panel and being a female disruptor. And we will put all the links to Web3 equity and anything else that you have to share. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Lisa, and congrats. This is amazing.
Thank you, and namaste. See you at the next session.